Hello, everybody. I hope that you're doing well. Welcome to A Pastor and a Therapist. I am Byron Benton, pastor here in North Charleston of Mount Moriah Missionary Baptist Church, and I'm here with my co-host. I'm handing it off to her.
Oh, that's what you're doing on this Thursday. Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Fredrica, and I am the therapist of this Pastor and a Therapist podcast. Thank you for joining us today.
All right. So we hope that you have enjoyed our past episodes that we've had. We've covered a number of topics, and you can see all of them by going to our YouTube page. If nothing else, you can just type in A Pastor and a Therapist in the search bar, and I'm sure that we will pop up. And you can see many of the topics we discuss. And if there are other topics that you want to see us take on, we'd love to hear from you, and you can just message us, and we look forward to doing so. Today, our topic is on time well spent, balancing life, faith, and responsibilities. I don't know about you, so I'm going to talk about myself for a moment. Time management is an ongoing work in progress for me, because life just keeps on lifing. Responsibilities just keep on piling, and you've got self-care. I've got kids. I've got family. I'm a pastor. There's everything happening in our government right now, which is enough to make your head spin with just 1 hour of the news cycle, let alone a full day. And it's very easy for things to get piled on. As a matter of fact, I have found out in my life, Dr. Fredrica, it's not so much that there are negative things or bad things that come my way. It's how do I manage all the good things, all the blessings? What are the good things that are for me to do, and what are good things that aren't necessarily for me to do? All these are things that we're going to discuss and kind of talk about today as we try to commit ourselves to managing time better. Now, with that said, it's incredibly important because how you manage your time will impact your health, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, right? Physically, how you spend your time directly impacts how you feel, your emotional well-being, your mental health. How you spend your time impacts how you rest and how you sleep, even. How you spend your time directly affects your life. And a couple of things that I want to do to set this up scripturally, because I am the pastor and a pastor and a therapist, is one, Ecclesiastes 3:1. It teaches us there's a time and there's a season for everything, right? And so it shifts, right? What I should be doing now is different than what I should be doing later, and vice versa. But two, there's another text, Psalms 90:12, where it says, teach us to number our days.
Mm.
There's a prayer called staring into the abyss, where we confront in prayer our finitude, the reality that every minute that we have is one less minute that we're going to have here on earth.
Mm.
So, some exercises that I often do and that I encourage others to do is, if you knew that you only had one day or one week left to live, you got that foreknowledge, an angel or God, or somehow you got the information and it was valid and true that you only had one week to live. How would you spend the remainder of your time? What would matter then and what would not matter so much? And how does that translate to what we really should be focusing in on right now in life? Now, nobody likes to do that, right? We don't want to think about death and think about staring into the abyss, but we do have to confront that reality to see if we're on chart to doing what's really in our heart to do, or if we're spending a lot of time doing things that we don't really feel are life giving to us or others, and it's causing us then to waste time. So the last thing I'll say before I pass it over to the doctor, Fredrica Brooks Davis, is how we steward our time is how we also honor God and honor ourselves and honor others. Everything that you have, it's a blessing that you have it. So, how you manage the time that you have greatly impacts how you live the time you have left. All right, let me pass it over. What do you think about all that, Dr. Frederick? What you think?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. Like that's some good stuff. That it is very true in terms of everything that you said. Personally, I think for me, I'm trying to figure out how can I accomplish all the things. Particularly more, it's interesting. Like, how can I fulfill? There's such great need, right? Always. I've always felt like, okay, I see this over here. I can do this over here. And really, it's not so much about myself as much as it is, how can I help? Now, certainly in terms of myself, helping others, yes, it makes us feel good. But at the same token, it's when whatever blessing we have, right? And that looks different for everybody. If we are living, I believe that we are blessed to be a blessing. And how we look at that, no matter whether to be a blessing, you don't have to have resources, right? You don't have to have finances. A blessing can be smiling with someone. A blessing can be saying good morning, good evening, being kind. That does not cost us a thing to be a blessing. So, to that end, I believe that all of us can be a blessing to ourselves and to someone else. I do believe, though, oftentimes we're taught that to take care of ourselves and to take time for self is selfish, when in all actuality, what we spend, particularly within religious communities, is giving back. If you're already a person who gives back, and then you find yourself in environments where that's taken advantage of, the danger is that you'll lean in to being needed, right? And so that then gets you off of what you're supposed to be doing. And we tell ourselves, well, I took this time to spend with Byron because he had something that he wanted me to talk about. That might be great, but that doesn't necessarily mean if that time was allotted for me to get something done, I can still show up for Byron, but also make sure I fulfill what I need to do that day. You can walk and chew gum at the same time. So, yes, management is extremely important, and we all need to live by that. And I'll finally say this morning. So, I went to bed late, like 2 this morning, right? So then usually before I go to sleep, I check my calendar for the next day. And then when I get up in the morning, I check. Well, I had great confidence in my understanding of my schedule today. And that was, I had a session at 11 and I had podcasts at 12. Well, guess what? I went down, got on my bike, riding my bike, doing it's 10:20. And the alarm says I had a 10 o'clock appointment. So when we talk about time, I thought it was real interesting that I had to run and apologize to get on that call. But then we're talking about time management today. So that's what I'll have.
Well, and thank you for your honesty, right? All of us are a work in progress in how we manage time. The key is making sure that we confront that, we confess that, and that we address it. Because if you don't plan out your time, you will waste your time. And what I have found out is people who don't respect their own time will waste your time. If you get around people who have no concept of time, no discipline around their time, then they won't respect your time. And the next thing you know, you start losing time anytime you are around them. So we have been called, I believe biblically, to be great stewards over time because God has blessed you with whatever time that you have, but also given us the responsibility of how we manage that time. We see that with Jesus, who was very serious about how he spent his time biblically. Only did what I see my father doing in heaven, things of that nature. But one of the key factors that I want to start with today is we should actually plan to spend time to rest. And I know that's a crazy thing to start with, right? I have a to-do list. I've got this. I've got that. I've got to take the garbage out. I got to feed the fish, right? All these things, right? But what I am telling you is that it is biblical, scriptural, and therapeutic and healthy to plan to rest. You plan everything else, and then it's like rest just gonna happen. Well, let me get this done, and then I will rest after that. No, 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 no. What if we said we've got a plan to rest? And a lot of us, like myself, when I was younger, I didn't plan to rest. What? No, I didn't plan to rest. But over 40 me says you need to plan the rest. You need to plan the rest. Otherwise, there won't be enough of you to do the rest of what you need to get done. God rested. Oh, right? He rested. After all the work and labor, God rested. There's a Sabbath where it's believed that we are to actually honor God and honor ourselves by planning to rest. What that means is all the other work I'm doing is with the expectation that when I get to this time and this moment, I'm going to rest. Now, for some of you, that may mean that at 10 o'clock, you need to shut it down. At 10 o'clock, like ain't no texting, ain't no tweeting, or whatever we call it, Xing now. I don't know. But at 9 o'clock or 9:30, it's different for each person. All I'm saying is, from my opinion, I feel that we need to make sure in how we plan that we plan to rest. What you think about that, good doctor?
I am in total agreement that we need to plan rest like we plan everything else. And so it's our responsibility to plan rest. It's a choice. It is, as you said, biblical. The one thing about it is when we don't plan rest, when we don't plan to balance our day and our time, it can lead to stress, right? And so what happens then, there's good stress and there's bad stress. So, for example, if you are planning a family reunion, if you are planning a trip, if you're planning to get married, that is good stress, right? These are exciting times. You're happy. In and of itself is stressful, and that's good stress. But then there's also bad stress. Bad stress we can bring on ourselves is when we don't plan our day, when we don't plan out our week. It is also stressful when we don't plan who we're going to spend our time with. Time is that commodity that we cannot get back. And that's where boundaries are very important. So, a question I have for you who are tuning in now and on the replay: if Pastor Byron and I were to look at your phone and your schedule for the next 7 days, who and what are you choosing as a priority in your life? Who and what? Because your schedule says a lot about you, says a lot about me, because our time is a choice. God, we don't have a choice whether or not we wake up. That's a gift from God. But once God wakes us up, every second is our choice. He gifted it to us. We're not guaranteed another second. But in the moment, how are we choosing to spend it, and who are we choosing to spend it with? So I want you to do your own self assessment right now. Also, in addition to stress, anxiety, right? Some of us now are anxious about what's going to happen tomorrow because we chose to spend our time sleeping. We had warnings and knowledge to read Project 2025. Instead of reading and doing our research, we were scrolling on the internet, posting pictures, doing new dances, thinking that what was told to us was not going to happen. So now what is happening is everything that was written prior to. It's also biblical, right? The word is already, there's nothing new under the sun. So what is happening now is biblical. We know that. The difference here is we have an opportunity to decide today, do I want to spend my time idle and waste it? Or do I want to spend my time being productive, right? How can I help? How can I move things forward? So that's what I have right now. How about you, Pastor B?
I think that was great. What I would add to it is when you do your list, see if your list of how you're spending your time, how you're planning to spend your time, aligns with your values. Many times there's a disconnect. We are saying, I want to be at one place, but then when you look at how you're spending your time, there's no way you're going in that direction. If you say, I want to be more family oriented and spend time with my family, with my kids, with my spouse, with my parents, with this significant other, whoever, but then you look at your schedule and you have not planned out any time for them, then you've got a disconnect from your value and your schedule, how you're planning to spend your time. If you're saying, I want to spend more time being more learned around what's happening in the political sphere, I want to spend more time being active in my community. Does your schedule reflect that? Are you making time to learn that and get plugged into those sources? So you look through and see in this season, what are my core values of what's important to me? If church is important or worship is important, is that in your schedule? Or is it just something that if I feel like it, I might go? I know what happens on Wednesday. I know what happens on Sunday. We're going to see how I feel on Saturday. No, if it's a part of your core value of how you see in this season yourself living out your life, then you need to make it a point of putting it in your plan because an unwritten plan is impossible to follow, right? And what gets measured gets done. What doesn't get measured does not get done. So the only way you know if you got accomplished what you plan to get accomplished is if you wrote it down to seek getting it accomplished in the first place. Then you look back and go, what happened to where I had planned to spend time reading this, but I didn't? What got in the way there? And that allows you then to do the work of figuring out, okay, what are the boundaries that need to be in place? Is it that just a one-off happened, an emergency happened, and that's what took me off course? Well, okay, emergencies happen. That's going to be done, and you get back to business as usual. You get back on schedule. Or is it that there are some kind of reoccurring patterns that keep showing up? Like, actually, what happened is I got caught up in the Facebook algorithm or the YouTube algorithm, and or I got caught up playing whatever game you play on your cell phone, and you said you're only going to play it for 5 minutes, but the next thing you know, 30 minutes pass by and you miss your devotion time, you miss your opportunity to work out, or now you're behind because you had some calls you need to make, and now you have to make those calls, and so now your day is spiraling. So whatever you're doing when you look at your blocks of time, see if it lines up with your desired outcomes that you're seeking from a value standpoint in your life. That's what I would add to that. Anything else you want to add before we move on, Dr. Frederick?
I think it's excellent. One thing that I want to make sure that we are highlighting here is that we are not encouraging you to fill your day with things to do. That's not what we're suggesting. So we're not suggesting that we want you to be smarter at being busy. That is not what we're saying. What Pastor Byron is saying, and I agree with, is what are our core values? So, for example, if in fact you want to take better care of yourself, mind, body, and spirit, you have the ability to do that. What does that mean? It may mean that you have to wake up at 6 a.m. in order to engage in your devotion, in your time of workout, and in time of just peace before you prepare to go to work. So, in doing that, what you're also doing is you may choose to then shut your day off at 10 p.m. And in shutting your day off at 10 p.m., it allows you to get the rest that you need in order to get up at 6 a.m. I remember talking to a sister who was working 3 jobs simultaneously. I'm not talking about she compartmentalized. She's working all three at the same time. And as we're talking about connecting with the Lord, which is her goal, something she wants to do, she then begins to talk about she's already getting up at 5 a.m., working 3 jobs. And then when she begins to talk about, okay, now I want to do something different, it's like, well, now I need to wake up at 5 a.m. Is that sustainable? Right. So, again, one thing that I have learned, and I encourage you to try it if you haven't, if you really structure your day and say, I'm going to go to bed at this time, wake up this time, you're going to be more productive the next day than if you stayed up late trying to get everything done. Because then you have it's the potential that you will make mistakes, errors, you're not as crisp. But if you go to bed and get up the next day, the Lord allows, you will then be more productive. So it is important that rest equals productivity. The more we rest, the more productive that we are. And then when we talk about fatigue and procrastination, when we have filled our schedules and we have no time, oftentimes that's going to cause us to be tired. We're going to procrastinate in what we're doing. And then it's going to create this decision fatigue where we just can't make a decision. Why? Because we're tired. And so it's important for us in terms of taking our time to make sure we get rest, we give time to others, and that's where I'll leave that right now, Pastor.
No, wonderfully said. This decision fatigue is very real. So for those who are in a position where you have to make a number of decisions, especially when you have to make decisions that impact people other than you, if you're a caregiver, if you're a parent, if you're a leader at your church or organization, whatever may have you, you're having to make a number of decisions. Where the energy that it takes to make decisions, that begins to weigh on you, and it can really build up, and you're wondering why you're so exhausted or so tired, or why you want to disengage. You know that this is your responsibility, but you don't want to deal with another email. Don't ask me another question. Right now you are checking out when people really need you to be present. That's a sign that fatigue has set in. Think of fatigue physically, right? You are capable of running or capable of walking, but if you do it for a prolonged amount of time, your body gets tired, and you may not be able to keep the pace that you normally could, or you may get a cramp, you may need to stop. Either way, your body's going to send signals that says, hey, even though you're well able to do this right now, we need to recover. And if you don't take the time to recover, you're not going to be able to walk at all, possibly. You won't have forward progression. And so that's what Dr. Fredrica was talking about. What I would add to that is sometimes you need breaks. And I'm learning that now. I am learning now that within my schedule to actually take breaks. I am notorious for stacking stuff like I'm doing today. Back to back to back to back to back to back. Oh, when you going to eat? I don't know. I'm going to figure it out somewhere in between. That's horrible. It is horrible. Pray for me. You need to factor in breaks. You'll be amazed at what a 5-minute walk will do for you. What just taking 5 minutes, 10 minutes and going, I'm going to go on for a walk, whether it's just down the hall in my workplace or in my house, go outside, walk around the block or walk around your facility, taking a break and just sitting there and laying and taking a deep breath and meditating in silence or just sitting in silence. breaks can be taken all kinds of different ways, but you'll be amazed at how you recover by taking these small breaks along the day, and it keeps you fresh and ready to engage in the next person and with the next item on your agenda. The last thing I'll say about it too is, and with all the Zoom meetings and things that we do, although I know a lot of us are being forced to go back into the workplace, but some of us are being forced to go back in the workplace just to be on a Zoom call with somebody in another state, another city, or down the hall. Um, Staring at these screens all day gives fatigue in and of itself, right? And so I'll leave it there and toss it back over to you. But I just want to add the adding in some short breaks, and again, plan the breaks, put it in your schedule. I'm going to do 10 minutes here. I'm going to have, even in baseball, there's a seventh inning stretch. In baseball, there's not a whole lot going on the whole time. There's plenty of time we can stand up anytime and stretch. But in baseball, everybody in the whole crowd and audience and team, they take a moment in the seventh inning and stretch. Good, doctor?
No, that's good. What comes to mind when you say that, for all of you who are entrepreneurs, for those of you who are bosses, and you are able to provide, because one of the things, time management, taking rest, self-care, it's learned. It's learned behavior. Your environment in which you grow up, your parents, your family, your guardians, you watch and see how they manage time. And then based upon that, you too will learn. That's learned behavior. And so you have to then decide at some point. Now, as I remember a couple years ago, where the Lord really worked with me around modeling, taking time for my staff. Because to your point, I would meal prep, have food, do that for years, many years. I would do that and take my food to work, but I would never eat. And then at the end of the day, it's like, oh, it's too late for me to eat. And so I would set the alarms. The staff would come in and say, Dr. Brooks Davis, it's time for you to eat. They were holding me accountable, but I was choosing to do work, right? And that is horrible. And so how the Lord dealt with me on that is, you need to stop and eat and just breathe. That's self-care. That's you pouring back into yourself. But then the larger thing that really hit me a couple of years ago is this modeling behavior. So what I did was share with my staff for 30 minutes. I was blocking out the conference room. And they weren't forced to do it, but they had 30 minutes to take a walk, to lay down on one of the sofas and take a nap, to eat their lunch. But then they also could come in the conference room, and it was sacred shared space. We could talk about anything non-work related. And it was just amazing how powerful that was for all of us, because it was time that we were intentional to stop at from 1 to 1:30. This is our time. The schedule is blocked. So I would challenge you, if you're a caregiver, if you are a supervisor, if you are a mother caring for your kids, find and identify at least 30 minutes on your schedule that is going to be your time and your boundary, and schedule it just like you schedule everything else. You schedule to go get your nails done, your hair. People talk about that self-care. That's something you checking off on the box. Like for some people, you might find that relaxing, but the rest I'm talking about is rest, as Pastor Byron said, to recover. That means that I'm not driving to an appointment to sit and get my hair done. Yes, that can be soothing, a good time, but there's something very different about, I'm not going anywhere, or I'm taking a staycation. And when I go, all I'm doing is just going to lay in the bed and chill. Whatever that might be for you, just rest. Yes, Pastor?
Yeah, and I would add to that, beware of the dopamine trap. Every time you look at those cell phones, your iPads or your tablets, right, you're getting a hit of dopamine, especially as the algorithms learn you and kicks out what it needs to kick out to you to keep you tuned into it. These algorithms, everything on these social media platforms, they're designed to keep you looking longer. The longer you look, the more advertisements you see, the more money they make. So the incentive on their end is to learn you to the point where you lose track of your time because you're spending so much of it with them. Beware of that. Beware of sitting in bed while you should be resting, saying, "Oh, I can't sleep." Well, you can't sleep because you're getting dopamine hits. You're constantly looking at this phone. Have you done what I've done in the past, and that's you're playing a game and you're so tired that you're literally falling asleep, but you wake up to continue playing the game on your phone? Again, pray for me. You need deliverance. My brother, my sister, if that's we need deliverance. We need to come to the altar and let the Lord do a work on us because we should be rested right now. Your body is literally shutting down, telling you, go to sleep. You're like, but I want to play
So
Candy
what you
Crush.
saying? Your phone is in your hand, and you're like,
Guilty, guilty, multiple times. And I know I'm not the only one. Don't y'all leave me out here hanging in Facebook and YouTube world. I know I'm not the only one. You sitting there getting knocked out and waking back up, somehow holding on to the phone. And when it gets really bad, you'll drop the phone, and that's what wakes
uh-uh,
you up when you pick it up. I'm just testifying a little bit. I'm confessing my sins before
So you saying so for you it's a game. Some you might be playing the game. Somebody else might be ordering stuff online. They see some shoes, they falling asleep. Before they know it, it's shoes, it's a dress that showed up. You have put all this stuff in your basket, and before you know it, you're like, "What in the world? Where did that come from?" Or it might be you on a date now,
Oh,
late at night, trying to see if you can get you a date for the weekend, and you swiping, and your swipe went in the wrong direction because
swipe
you
for
was
those
tired.
swipers.
So, in other words, we want you to be mindful that you need to put those devices down because it can get you in some trouble. You sending a text message and you texting the wrong person, it's just not helpful. But I think all of us at some point can acknowledge that we have overextended ourselves. It is not healthy for us to do it. When we do that, we eat the wrong foods, we pick up the wrong things, we spend more money than we had planned to spend. So our goal here today is not to try to make you feel bad, make us feel bad. It is to encourage you that in this season of uncertainty in life in general, that it is important for us to really get back to our core values, to take an assessment of how we spend our time, what we're doing, and who we are spending our time with. And if those things are not serving you, then it's important that you establish boundaries. So, an example of when we talk about stress, it can be that people want to be engaged in drama back and forth, right? They want conflict. You may be a person who chooses how much time you're going to give to having certain discussions. And the reality is, silence is also very helpful. I promise you it is. So, when you talk about spending time, some people spend time figuring out how they can get somebody back or how angry you're going to be about this or that. Remember, that's all time too. As opposed to spending time of letting stuff go. Some of us really need to spend some time letting things go, realizing we don't have control over certain situations, we don't have control over people, and we need to let it go. And in this time where we are facing unprecedented times nationwide, and I'm in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, and I realize that some of these decisions that are being made are not just in this area, but that there's a trickle down effect. But what I do want us to understand is things are about perspective. And what I mean by that is when we find ourselves in situations beyond our control, you in a relationship, you believe that your marriage is going to be 50 years. Your spouse comes home and says, I want out. That is a time in which it may have caught you off guard. You go to work, you believe that you're going to have a job, and your boss says no. or any of the things that are beyond our control that can cause us to get anxious, right? We get disappointed, we get hurt. At some point, however, that we want you to know that you can choose how you spend your time to recover. And the time of recovering, instead of automatically going into fight or flight, trying to find you a new job, trying to find you a new spouse, trying to replace what you lost, really what has happened is you've been gifted with time to repurpose yourself, repurpose your priorities. So even in seasons like this, where you may be um, anxious about what's to come, try to use your time really to be still, as the word says, and know that He is God. And that really, for myself, I'm telling y'all, 2024 was a heck of a year. But the word that God gave me was to be still and know. That didn't mean I wasn't working, because faith without works is dead. It did mean I was intentional about where I spent my time and who I spent my time with and how I spent my time. Pastor Byron, what do you think?
Wonderfully said. What came to mind was the scripture that talks about how the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And I added your time at the end. The enemy desires to kill, steal, and destroy your time. And you and I have control over how much time we're going to give to be killed, stolen, or destroyed. We Sometimes you can't help, things happen, but how much time we give them, we do have some sort of input on, usually, how we're going to spend that time. With that said, and with the minutes we have left, because we'll spend next time on this subject too, and we'll get more into some to practical ways. I would like us to dive just a little bit in of, all right, we hear you. I feel convicted, because at the end of the day, here's the deal: if what we're saying doesn't have to make you feel bad, and we're not trying to make you feel bad, because here's the reality: when we don't spend our time wisely, we already feel bad. It feels horrible when you feel like you've wasted a day. Isn't it a horrible feel? Like you just feel defeated, and it's tough to get your energy back when you procrastinated, when you know you didn't get done what you need to get done. It just zaps your energy. And what's crazy about that is you didn't put forth the energy to do it, but yet you feel less energized, as opposed to you feel very accomplished when you do put the energy into the time like you desire to. You feel more fulfilled, and now you get the good energy rolling, and it gives you more energy to keep it going, as opposed to once you're in the other trap in that cycle, it's hard sometimes to just galvanize enough energy just to lift yourself up to start doing even the most mundane of things that you would put out to do. So here are just a few things and some of this, y'all, this is actually what I'm doing and committing to this year, and really working and reworking in order to make sure that I'm managing my time to the best of my ability. But these are things that anybody, if you qualify or fall into the busy category, if you're one of those busy people, busy preachers, busy ministers, busy clinicians, busy fill in the blank, whoever you are, busy mama, busy daddy, these are just some practical tips to help out. The first one is set goals for the year, for the quarter, for the month, for the week, for the day. If that's too much, for the year, for the month, for the week, for the day. If that's too much, for the year, for the month, for the week. The key is here, you want to make sure that all those goals are lining up with each other. If you've got a yearly goal of saving money, then something in your daily or weekly goal should fall in line with that. I'm going to take lunch 4 days a week this week, right? If you want to go on vacation once this year, right? Well, you need to make sure you have PTO or whatever your job situation is for that, or that you've got a babysitter if this is just for you and your significant other, your spouse, all of that. So how are you planning to line that up, right? Because if I'm going on vacation, or if you're going on a missions trip in October, right? What you're doing now needs to line up to free you up to do that in October. So the first just simple principle that I have is set your long-term goal for the year, right? And even longer term goals, if you really want to get into it, long term goals would be beyond 1 to 5 years. But start small. If they're just starting, set it for this year. You may just have to start with, I'm going to start with goals for the day of the week. But you want all that to be pointing towards your longer term goal. As one of our wonderful guests on here put, write the vision, write down the vision, write the vision, make it plain so that anyone who sees it can run with it. That's a back of 2 and 2. And so you want to do that. That would be my first tidbit on this. What do you think, Dr. Fredrica?
Sorry, I think I totally agree. So what we're going to ask you to do, whether you are watching now or catching the replay, we want you to drop in the chat what is your one goal that you're going to commit to between now and in 2 weeks. The Lord says it, we'll be back together again in 2 weeks at 12 o'clock. What's the one goal that you're going to drop? Drop it now. I'm going to add to establishing that one goal, who's going to be your accountability partner. So one goal. So regardless of when you're hearing this, I want you to write it down and then identify your accountability partner and tell them about it. All right, Pastor?
All right. So we all have an assignment. You've got a goal to write down, and you've got to seek an accountability partner. Okay. Now, most of our goals fall into 5 categories: faith, right? You have something going on spiritually, you have goals that you want to accomplish there, whether there's activity in your house of worship or how you're studying, meditating, right? Faith, finance, right? Where you want to be financially. A lot of us have goals there. Fitness, when it comes to how we want to eat, exercise, doctor visits, care for ourselves, right? Fitness, sleep, all that goes into there, right? So we got faith, we got finance, we got fitness, we got field. All of us have goals, whether it's switching jobs, going back and getting education. It's how we live out in the field. How we live out in the field. You have goals there. You need to write down, right? Pick one of these areas. The 5th one is family. And family is inclusive of those who are your blood family as well as those who are not blood family but considered family. They're close relationships. So the last one's really relationships. When you look at your goals, I guarantee you whatever you wrote down can fall into at least one of those categories, because what those go and pull at our core values of who we are, who we spend our time with, our own health, how we work or what we're wanting to do with work, right? Our finances in that situation. All of these fall in those categories. So I encourage you to kind of look and see what did you decide to focus on, because as your one, because it says a lot probably about in this season what the broader goal is that you're really wanting to reach for. So those were automatically something that was a family relationship that came up. That's probably the area that's really on your heart that you really want to work on, and that's really maybe even causing you worry and anxiety. For others, it may be finances, the first thing that came up. It's just a way of further assessing where you are on that. All right, Dr. Fredrica, we want to do one more tidbit. Should I jump on another?
Sure. Well, sure. So I want us to keep it small and manageable.
Okay.
And take away one of I would like for the next goal to be something that you highlighted earlier. So I even took it down to 2 weeks. So between the time today or whenever you hear the replay, for the next 2 weeks, one goal, and identify the person that's going to hold you accountable. I have one more goal that we tried to reinforce today, and that is in the next 2 weeks, I want you to plan 2 opportunities for rest. That's 1 per week. So instead of giving you something else to do, resting is a to-do, but we also want to balance out work with rest. So that's what we focused on today, because that's going to help you with your anxiety. What does rest look like? It means you're not doing anything in that time. You're just relaxing. You're not scrolling
I can't watch
Facebook.
CNN.
No.
What about NPR?
NPR. No. No. Mm-mm. No. Rest is you are tuning all of that out.
What,
No
what about
television,
sending prayers to
no
people?
movie,
Prayers to
no,
people.
no, you're not sending prayers. No, no, no. You're not you this period of rest is just what that is. I'm gonna ask for 30 minutes. 30 minutes once each week. That'll total an hour minimum. No social media, no phone, no television, no streaming. You are just sitting and being. That's it. 30 minutes. I
30 minutes.
know we can do it.
We got this.
We got it.
We got it. 30 minutes.
30 minutes. Okay.
So the homework, go over all of our homework again. There's you've got a goal, just one goal
One goal.
to fulfill within these 2 weeks
Yes.
before we come back again. You've got to find an accountability person,
Yep.
accountability partner. It's going to hold you accountable. That means you have to share with them the goal. Let's be clear. You have to share with them the goal and let them know that they are your accountability partner. And you have to agree to allow them to be your accountability partner. Don't be, dodging their calls and texts. Knowing you ain't been doing right. It's like, oh, no, I know why they call it. Yeah, you know why they call it, because they're trying to hold you accountable. Let them hold you accountable. And you heard the other charge from Dr. Fredrica. Take 30 minutes. Did you say do it twice?
I did.
Do it twice. 30 minutes twice. Now, we have to do this as well. I feel challenged right now. I feel challenged. I'm already trying to figure out what my goal is going to be, who my accountability partner is going to be, all of that. And so we will lead in this by example, or try our best to do so, because we need this as much as anybody who's hearing this right now. We're living in the same world that you all are. We're incredibly busy. There's a lot of transition happening with us and all around us. So we need this. So there you see it. It's posted. Identify one goal for the next 2 weeks. Identify an accountability partner for that goal. Rest for 30 minutes 2 times within the next 2 weeks. And that means you're actually planning to rest. You don't accidentally do these 30 minutes and then say, oh, well, I didn't mean to take a nap, but I fell asleep at the table, so that was my 30 minutes. No, you've got a plan to rest.
So Tina says if she rests more than 10 minutes, it will turn to sleep. Okay. Maybe that's going to be your time of rest. That may happen. That's a good thing. You may need it. You may need it. All right.
So if you know that about yourself, make sure that you plan it accordingly. Know that you may not be able to do that at noon. And you just ate lunch, like, all right, I'm gonna get my 10 minutes. If you know you're going to sleep,
right,
then you plan to sleep. And that's where your body is. That's what your mind, your soul. Listen to it and let the Lord use you, baby, as my grandmama used to say. Let the Lord use you.
But let me also say, and Tina not saying this, but let me also say, rest is not when it's time for you to go to sleep. So if you know you go to bed at 10 o'clock, that does not count towards your 30 minutes of rest. Absolutely not. That is not what we're saying. Not at all. You are intentional about resting, just like you would be intentional about planning to go to dinner with your friends or to a concert. 30 minutes that you're going to take out of your day for you. This is you being selfish so that you can go out and help other people. So that's all I have. How about you? We are back together again in 2 weeks. We want to hear what you did. We're going to pick up where we left off with this time well spent, balancing life, faith, and responsibilities. And we'll pick up on that. And as Pastor Byron said, We know today, for some reason, we were having problems with getting this also on his social media pages. So if some of you all are watching the replay, wherever you may find it, we encourage you to tag friends. We encourage you to share and subscribe to our Pastor and a Therapist page. In 2 weeks, you come back and you report how well you did, and we'll finish up our discussion around time, balance, anxiety, and stress. Okay, my cousin says she's gonna focus on her diet for health reasons. And Michael Williams is your accountability partner. And guess what, Linda? Everybody who watching now and later are your accountability partners. I'm about to put this in my calendar. So diet for health reasons, and her husband is her accountability. All right, sounds good. And I see, Melanie, you've tagged people. So yes, thank you all for joining. Pastor Byron, I'll let you close us out.
Yeah. So everybody, may the time that you spend be fruitful. May it be encouraging. May it be life-giving to you. And may this be an exercise that shows us how to really value the time that we have been given. And we thank you for spending your time with us. We do not take that for granted. And so may God bless you, keep you, and we'll see you again soon.